The night comes with fear. Adanna's eyes widened as she pressed both hands over her round belly. Her fingers splayed like a protective shield as the black SUV swerved in front of their car on a Zumba road. She was 8 months heavily pregnant. The driver hit the brake. Tires screamed. 2 masked men jumped out of the SUV. One pointed a gun. The bodyguard beside the driver shouted, "Down!" Bullets slammed into the armored door like angry fists. In the sudden chaos, horns blaring, people diving behind cars, Adana could hear only one sound: the fast drum of her baby's heartbeat inside her. The second bodyguard leaned across her. "Madam, don't move. Trust me." The driver gripped the wheel, eyes fixed. Then a voice from the SUV cut through the noise. It was cold and familiar. "Bring her out." Adana's breath stopped. The driver slammed the gear. The car shot forward. Metal scraped metal. The SUV tried to block again. The bodyguard lifted his radio. Eagle to base, ambush at a Zumba. Engaging. A shot cracked like thunder. Everything went white. Earlier that year, under the Oshodi underbridge, Lagos woke up slowly. Adana opened her eyes to concrete and sky. Hunger pressed on her chest like a small stone. She hugged her worn handbag, the only thing she still owned. Her gown was torn at the hem. Her hair was tangled and rough. She sat up, dusted off her dress, and whispered, "God, what will I eat today?" She stood and walked. Her sandals slapped the ground. She passed a woman roasting corn, a man pushing a wheelbarrow of oranges, and a boy selling sachet water. Life moved around her like a river that had forgotten her name. By late morning, she reached Victoria Island. Glass towers rose like tall guardians. People in fine suits moved with purpose. Adana slowed near a building with silver letters, Natek headquarters. Inside, the lobby was bright and cool. Through a long glass wall, she could see a boardroom filled with people. A man stood at the head of the table, his hand on a stack of papers. His eyes were red. He was tall, dark-skinned, well-dressed, and shaking. She recognized him from television. Jonathan Namdi, billionaire founder of Natek. He spoke, his voice breaking. "The investors want a clear view of our progress by tomorrow morning. The numbers of our earnings don't match across teams. The graphs keep changing. The accounting is full of errors. I know we grew this year, I can feel it. But I need proof, clean, simple, truthful." A man in a grey suit, David, head of accounting, cleared his throat. We're working on it. But a whiteboard behind him showed only messy arrows and half-erased charts. Papers covered the table. Some graphs went up, others went down. Nothing matched. People whispered, someone sighed. Jonathan rubbed his forehead. "We submit tomorrow. If we fail, the investors will pull out." Adana stood at the glass, watching. She saw fear in his face. It was the same fear she had seen in her face months ago when she lost everything. Pain is a mirror. It shows you yourself in other people. A cleaner bumped into her. "Sister, you can't stand here." "I'm sorry," Adana said. But she didn't move. She couldn't. The boardroom felt like a room on fire, and nobody knew where the water was. Inside, David drew a shaky line. "This is revenue. But if we adjust for..." "Adjust for what?" Someone snapped. "Yesterday you said the calendar range was wrong. Today you say we removed duplicates. Which one is it?" Adana's eyes traveled over the whiteboard. Months mixed with weeks, regions mixed with products, and sales mixed with cash received. It was confusion dressed as work. Her heart began to beat faster. She could see it. She could see the fix. She took a breath. Then, before fear could hold her back, she pushed open the boardroom door. Heads turned. Silence fell. The room smelled like coffee and panic. David's lip curled. "Security!" 2 guards near the door moved at once. A few executives covered their noses, looking at Adana's dusty dress and hair. Someone whispered, "Who let her in?" Adana held her ground. "Sir," she told Jonathan, "I can help you. I can save your company. Your graphs don't match because your data is mixed. Sales records are in different calendars. You counted some things twice, and you put promises to pay inside money already paid. You need to clean the data, then show progress month by month, and compare it to last year in one simple view." David laughed, sharp and loud. "Sir, she thinks this is a game. Get her out." The guards reached for her arms. Jonathan raised his hand. Wait. He studied Adanna's face. Her eyes were tired but clear. Not wild, not proud, just sure. What would you do first? He asked softly. Adanna swallowed. First, fix the dates. Choose one calendar, January to December. Move every sale to the right month by the date of invoice. Second, remove duplicates. If a sale was edited, keep the newest one, drop the rest. Third, separate invoice sent from cash received. Use 2 charts, one for revenue, one for cash. Fourth, group your sales by product and region. That way, we can show what truly grew. Fifth, compute gross margin, so we can see profit, not only sales. Then we make a clean line chart that shows each month this year against each month last year. One picture, no noise. She looked at the messy whiteboard. May I? Jonathan walked to her. He pressed a black marker into her hand. Show us. David took a step forward. Sir. Jonathan didn't look at him. Please. Adana went to the board. Her hand shook for a second. She whispered inside, You can do this. Then the shaking stopped. She wiped the chaos clean until the board gleamed. Then she drew a small table of the 12 months in a neat roll. Under it, 2 simple boxes. Revenue, invoiced, and cash received. To the side, a short list titled Clean Up. 1 calendar. Remove duplicates. Split invoice versus cash. Group by product, HEA. Region, compute gross margin. She drew a line chart. 2 lines, one for this year, one for last year. The lines started low, dipped in March, where a product was paused, then climbed after June, when a new feature launched. She marked the launch with a small dot and wrote, Feature X launched. She added a quick waterfall chart to explain how promotions and returns affected the totals. Then she wrote a clear sentence at the top. Nattech's core products grew steadily month by month. Cash lagged revenue by 30 days, but collections improved in Q4. Gross margin rose 6 points due to cost cuts and smarter pricing. She stepped back. That is your story. True, simple. You didn't fall, you grew. No one moved. Then the youngest analyst in the room whispered, She's right. Another nodded. We did lump invoices with cash, and we used fiscal weeks for one product and calendar months for others. A woman from sales leaned forward. The June dip. That was our supply problem. It fits. David's face tightened. This can't be it. She must have. Jonathan's chair scraped the floor as he stood. He walked to the board. He traced the line with his finger like someone touching proof of hope. Then he turned to Adana. Thank you, he said. His voice broke again, but this time it was not from fear. Young lady, you just saved my company. The room exhaled all at once. People stood. A few clapped. Someone laughed for the first time that day. The tension was gone, like a bad dream waking up. Adana lowered the marker. Her eyes shone, but she did not smile. Not yet. The guard who had tried to pull her out now looked at his shoes. Jonathan faced the table. David. David snapped to attention. Sir, take her framework. You and your team will turn it into a formal presentation by 8 a.m. Tomorrow. 2 charts. Month-over-month revenue versus last year and cash versus last year. Include the waterfall for adjustments. Add gross margin by quarter. Clear notes, no noise. He turned to a young woman at the far end. Chinwe, you'll help with the visuals. Simple colors, big labels. Nothing fancy. Chinwe nodded, smiling. Yes, sir. David tried to speak. But sir, who is she? How did she? This could be a trick. A competitor. Jonathan shook his head. Truth looks like truth, and desperation looks like lies. Choose which one you want to stand with today. David's mouth closed. Jonathan turned back to Adana. What is your name? Adana, she said softly. Adana, he repeated, as if tasting the meaning father's daughter. Come with me. He picked up his phone. Bring the car to the front, he told someone. Then to the room. We are done. Do the work. No more excuses. He looked at the whiteboard one more time and at the woman who had cleared it like rain after harmattan dust. Let's go. They walked out together, past the glass that had first divided them. In the lobby, people stared. Outside, a black Rolls-Royce waited, shining under the Lagos sun. "Please," Jonathan said, opening the door for her. "Ride with me." Adana hesitated. The wind lifted a small piece of hair from her cheek. For a moment she saw herself as she was that morning, under the bridge, hungry, tired, unseen. Then she saw the boardroom again, the marker in her hand, the clean lines telling a true story. She slid into the back seat. Across the street, a dark sedan with tinted windows idled by the curb. A hand held up a phone. Inside the sedan, a man's voice hissed into a call. "Find out who she is," the voice said, "and make sure she doesn't show up tomorrow." The Rolls-Royce pulled into traffic. The Rolls-Royce glided through the streets of Victoria Island, its tinted windows shutting out the noise of Lagos traffic. Adana sat stiffly in the back seat, clutching her old handbag as if it were the only piece of her still allowed in this new world. Beside her, Jonathan leaned back against the leather seat, his eyes quietly studying her. "You handled yourself well back there," he said finally. "Not many people can walk into a boardroom full of executives and speak with such certainty." Adana kept her gaze low. "I wasn't sure if you would let me finish. For a moment, I thought I'd be dragged out before I could even explain." Jonathan smiled faintly. "I almost let them throw you out. But something in your eyes. It wasn't pride. It wasn't fear either. It was clarity. That's rare." The driver slowed at a tall glass building. "Sir, should we stop here?" Jonathan shook his head. "No. Go to De Royal Spa." He turned to Adana. "You're coming with me." Her fingers tightened around the frayed strap of her bag. "Sir, I don't understand." "You will," he said. "Just trust me." Minutes later, the car stopped at one of the most exclusive salons in Lagos. Marble steps led up to golden doors. Elegant women in fine gowns walked in and out, their laughter light as bells. Adana froze. Her gown was torn at the hem, her hair tangled from nights of dust and wind under Oshodi Bridge. She could feel every pair of eyes staring at her. Jonathan stepped out first. When Adana hesitated, he held out his hand. "Come." She shook her head. "I don't belong here." His voice was calm but firm. "Adana, today you saved a company worth billions. You belong anywhere you choose to stand." Her throat tightened. Slowly, she placed her hand in his, and he led her up the steps. Inside, stylists and attendants paused, surprised at the sight of her. But Jonathan's presence silenced whispers. He gave instructions with the ease of a man used to being obeyed. "Give her everything she needs. Hair, nails, gown. Treat her like royalty." Adana sat in the chair, still half in disbelief. As warm water washed through her hair, as hands worked carefully to untangle and soften it, she closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt human again, not a shadow under a bridge, but a woman being seen. Hours passed. When the doors of the boutique next door opened, a stylist guided her out in a flowing green gown. Her hair was packed neatly in a bun, her face glowing, her steps light. Jonathan, who had been waiting in the lobby, stood slowly when he saw her. His lips parted, but no words came. The room seemed to pause. Adana lowered her eyes, embarrassed. "Thank you, sir." But Jonathan shook his head. "No, Adana. I should be the one thanking you. Without you, Nattech would be finished tomorrow. You didn't just help us, you gave us hope." Her chest ached at the kindness in his voice. She muttered again, "Thank you," though her eyes filled with tears. That evening, the Rolls-Royce pulled into Jonathan's mansion. The iron gates swung open to reveal gardens lit with soft lamps, a fountain dancing at the center, and a house so vast it felt like a palace. Adana gasped softly, pressing her handbag tighter against her chest. She had never seen such wealth up close. Jonathan noticed her silence. "This is home. Tonight, it is also yours. You'll stay in the guest wing. My staff will take care of you." He handed a briefcase to a maid. "These are the clothes I picked for her. Make sure she has everything she needs." The maid nodded, leading Adana away. But before she could disappear into the hall, Jonathan called softly, "Later tonight, meet me in my study. There are things I want to know." The study was quiet, filled with books and the smell of polished wood. Adana sat opposite Jonathan, her new gown still unfamiliar on her skin. He leaned forward, eyes gentle but searching. "Who are you, Adana? A woman does not solve a company's crisis in minutes unless she carries a story." Her lips trembled. Slowly, she began. She told him of her past, graduating as the best student in data analytics, earning a first class in accountancy, returning home ready to take on the world. Then the night everything ended, her father's murder, her mother's death, her uncle Adana chasing her from the family home with forged documents. She told him of how she drifted, lost her will to fight, and ended up under Oshodi Bridge, living as a shadow. Tears slipped down her cheeks. My parents were my only reason to keep pushing. When they died, I lost myself. But today, when I saw you in pain, I remembered who I used to be. Jonathan's eyes glistened as she spoke. When she finished, the room was still. Finally, he whispered, "You've suffered more than anyone should. But you are not finished. Your parents' dreams for you are not dead." He leaned back, his own voice trembling now. "I know what it feels like to lose everything. My wife, Olivia, left me years ago. She took my savings, my car, and worst of all, she took the twins I had raised as my own. She left a note saying they belonged to my best friend. That pain almost destroyed me, but I chose to rise. I built Nattech from that fire. And now, maybe it was fate that brought you here today." Adanna's tears fell freely. For the first time in years, she felt the heavy stone on her chest shift. For the first time, she felt the possibility of healing. The clock ticked softly. Outside, the mansion lights glowed. Inside, two broken souls shared their stories, not knowing how deeply their lives were about to entwine. And somewhere in Lagos, in a dark apartment, David poured himself a drink. His eyes burned as he stared at his laptop screen, watching the data model Adana had drawn, now turned into a polished slide by his team. "She ruined everything," he hissed. "But she won't ruin me." He picked up his phone. Morning broke over Lagos with a pale gold sun. Traffic roared outside Nattech headquarters, but inside, silence ruled. The boardroom was full again, suits, laptops, and bottled water lined neatly on the polished table. A thick air of tension hovered. Jonathan sat at the head of the table, his jaw set. Beside him was Adana, her hair neatly in a bun. The staff exchanged glances, some still whispered in disbelief at her transformation. Just yesterday, she was a ragged stranger at the glass doors. Today, she walked in like she belonged. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jonathan began, his deep voice steady. "Today is the most important day in this company's history. Our investors will arrive in an hour. They expect clarity. They expect truth. Yesterday, we were on the edge of collapse, but we were saved by someone none of us expected." He gestured toward Adana. "She has given us the framework we'll present today. And before we begin, I want her to walk us through it once more." David's hand shot up before she could stand. "Sir, with all due respect, this is dangerous. We cannot let an outsider, someone with no official position, represent us to investors. It's unprofessional. We already have accountants. That's my job." Whispers rippled across the room. Some nodded, but others avoided his eyes. Jonathan didn't flinch. "David, your job was to deliver results weeks ago. You failed. Today, Nattech cannot afford pride. It needs answers. And if Adana has them, then she speaks." Adana rose slowly, her palms sweating. She walked to the screen where the slides were ready. Her voice trembled at first, but then steadied as the words flowed. Sharp and clear. "Good morning. What we're showing you is not magic, it's clarity. Yesterday, your data was scattered across calendars, duplicates, and unclear categories. Today, it's clean." She clicked. The first chart appeared. 2 simple lines. One for the previous year, one for the current. The growth was undeniable. Gasps filled the room. "This is revenue invoice sent. Here," she circled June, "we see a dip from supply delays. But from July onward, growth was steady. By December, revenue was 40% higher than the previous year." Another click. "This is cash actual payments received. At first, cash lagged behind invoices by 30 days. But by Q4, collections improved. That shows stronger trust from your customers." Another slide. A waterfall chart explained promotions, returns, and cost cuts. Finally, gross margin. Costs went down, smarter pricing went up. Your profits rose 6 points. Investors don't want noise, they want progress. And here, you can prove it. Silence. Then the COO, a sharp woman in her 50s, leaned forward. This changes everything." Applause burst. Executives clapped, some stood. Jonathan smiled faintly, pride shining in his eyes. But not David. He sat stiff, hands clenched. His face was red with anger. When the room calmed, Jonathan spoke. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we will present today. No excuses, no confusion. Clear, simple truth." He looked at Adana. "Thank you." For a moment, Adana felt something she hadn't in years' worth. 1 hour later, the investors arrived. Men and women in dark suits filed in, carrying the weight of billions. The presentation began. Jonathan welcomed them, then handed over to Adana. Every chart glowed on the screen, every word measured. The investors nodded, some whispering to each other, others typing notes. When Adana finished, the lead investor stood. "This is what we've been waiting for. Clear growth, clear profit. NatTech has our confidence. We will continue our support." Relief swept across the room like wind through dry grass. People clapped again. Jonathan stood and shook hands with the investors, gratitude in his smile. Adana exhaled, her knees weak. For the first time since her parents died, she felt she had done something that mattered. But across the room, David seethed. His career, his pride, his authority snatched away by a homeless woman with nothing but a marker. As the investors left, he cornered her by the hallway. His voice was low and dangerous. "You think you've won, don't you? Enjoy the spotlight while it lasts. You don't belong here, and I'll make sure everyone knows it." Adana met his glare. Her voice was calm. "Truth always belongs, and truth is what saved NatTech today." David's lip curled. "We'll see how long your truth lasts." He walked away, dialing his phone. His whisper echoed down the corridor. "She's the threat. I want her gone. Do it quietly." Adana shivered. For the first time, she realized her victory had painted a target on her back. That night, as she sat in her guest room at Jonathan's mansion, she stared out the window at the city lights. Hope glowed in her heart, but so did fear, because somewhere out there, in the same city, someone was already planning her fall. The weeks that followed the investor meeting were filled with celebration. NatTech's name filled business headlines. NatTech regains investor trust. One paper wrote. Another said, "Mysterious analyst saves billion-dollar tech giant." Inside the company, staff whispered about the woman who had walked in from the streets and solved what the accountants could not. For Adana, life was changing faster than she could understand. She now wore tailored suits instead of torn gowns. She had her own office in NatTech's headquarters, a glass-walled room labeled Head of Data Analytics. Staff greeted her with respect, though some still watched with quiet envy. Every morning, Jonathan's driver picked her up from the mansion. Every evening, she rode back with Jonathan himself, the two of them often talking late into the night about numbers, strategy, and sometimes their pasts. But beneath the success, shadows stirred. David was no longer head of the data team. His power had shrunk. To him, every headline praising Adana was salt on an open wound. He hid his bitterness in silence, but his mind worked in secret. Jonathan and Adana had grown inseparable. Their bond had become more than gratitude or admiration. It was love, quiet, steady, and undeniable. One evening, in the mansion's garden under twinkling fairy lights, Jonathan went down on one knee. He held out a ring, his eyes glistening. "Adana," he said, voice trembling, "you saved my company. But more than that, you saved me. Will you marry me?" Adana's hand flew to her mouth, tears filling her eyes. The memories of the bridge, the hunger, the despair, all washed against the reality of this moment. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, I will." Cheers erupted from the small gathering of friends and staff. Even the guards clapped. Weeks later, Lagos buzzed with excitement. The wedding was the event of the year. Celebrities, politicians, and business moguls filled the hall. Adana walked down the aisle in a flowing white gown, her steps graceful, her eyes shining. Jonathan stood waiting, dressed in a royal blue agbada, his face glowing with pride. When the priest declared them husband and wife, the hall erupted with applause. Flashbulbs exploded, music filled the air, and for a moment it felt as if the entire world celebrated their union. 8 months had passed after the wedding. Adana became heavily pregnant. She was in her 8 months. Despite her pregnancy, she wasn't lazy and still performed her role excellently at the office. One evening, as Jonathan stayed late in the office for a meeting with new investors, Adana insisted on going home early. Her pregnancy was showing a soft curve under her dress. 2 security men accompanied her as always. She was tired, her body heavy. All she wanted was to lie down. The black SUV slid into traffic along Ozumba Ambadiwe Road. Lagos lights glittered on the water. Adana leaned her head against the glass, listening to the city's heartbeat horns, shouting laughter. The guards murmured quietly in the front seats. Then it happened. Another SUV, darker and bigger, swerved in front of them. Tires screeched. The driver braked hard. Cars honked angrily behind them. 2 masked men jumped out, rifles raised. "Ambush!" the guard in front shouted. He pulled his pistol and ducked low. Adana's heart slammed against her ribs. Her hands flew to her belly. She could feel her baby kick, as if sensing danger. The masked men shouted, "Open the door. Bring her out now." The driver gritted his teeth, whispering into his radio, "Eagle under fire. Ozumba ambush. Need backup now." A voice cut through the chaos. Cold. Familiar. "Adana belongs to me. Bring her out." Her blood ran cold. She knew that voice. David. The guard fired through the windshield, bullets sparking against the attacker's SUV. One masked man staggered back, but the other kept shooting. Glass shattered. Adana screamed, ducking low as sparks flew from the armored door. "Hold on, madam," the driver roared. He slammed the gear and hit the accelerator. The car lunged forward, smashing into the SUV, blocking them. Metal groaned. Sparks lit the night. The attackers fired wildly, but the armored car held. The driver swerved hard left, tires screeching as he broke free into an open lane. "Don't let them escape!" David's voice bellowed from behind. The SUV chased, headlights glaring. Bullets hammered the rear window. The guards fired back through the small hatch, hitting the attacker's hood. Smoke burst out. The black SUV swerved, nearly colliding with a Danfo bus. Horns and screams filled the night. Adana clutched her belly tighter, whispering through tears, "Please, God, please." At last, the driver made a sharp turn onto a side road, speeding toward Ikoyi. The attackers fell behind, their SUV smoking and damaged. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The driver didn't slow until the mansion gates loomed ahead. The guards shouted to open the gates, and the armored car screeched inside. The gates slammed shut. Inside, Adana collapsed into the seat, trembling. Tears rolled down her face as she whispered to the guards, "You saved me. You saved my baby." Within hours, the police raided David's apartment. Evidence spilled everywhere, messages, plans, payments to the masked men. He was arrested, wrists in cold iron, fury burning in his eyes. In the mansion, Jonathan returned from his meeting and found Adana shaken, wrapped in a shawl, her eyes red. He held her close. "I should have been there. I should have." She pressed her hand to his chest. "No, Jonathan. You gave me protection. They saved me. That's enough." But Jonathan's face hardened. "It isn't enough. David wanted to destroy you. That means he wanted to destroy me too. I won't forgive this." The next morning, David was charged with attempted murder, conspiracy to abduct, and destruction of property. In court, he glared at Adana, his voice hoarse. "You ruined me. But you won't survive this world either. People like you don't belong here." Adana met his eyes calmly. "Truth always belongs." The judge's gavel struck. "You are hereby sentenced to 10 years imprisonment." The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. David was dragged away in chains, still shouting, still cursing her name. Adana exhaled, relief flooding her chest. But even as the gavel echoed in her ears, she knew this was not the end. Because the shadows David had stirred were bigger than one man's anger. And somewhere, beyond the court walls, new enemies were already watching. The courtroom doors slammed shut behind David, but his words lingered in the air like smoke. "You won't survive this world either." Adana walked out with Jonathan beside her, his hand warm against her back. Cameras flashed outside, reporters shouting questions. Who is the mysterious woman? Is she the new power behind NatTech? Security cleared the way, but Adana kept her eyes down, her palm pressed gently against her stomach. Inside, her baby kicked. Life, fighting to come forward. 1 month later, Adana went into labor. The night was heavy with rain, thunder rolling across Lagos skies. At the hospital, Jonathan never left her side. He held her hand through every contraction. whispering encouragement, praying under his breath. And then came a cry, small, fierce, beautiful. The nurse lifted a tiny baby girl wrapped in white. "Congratulations, madam. Congratulations, sir. It's a girl." Adana wept openly as Jonathan carried the child, his tears falling onto her little face. "Mirabel," he whispered, voice breaking. "She is our miracle." Adana smiled through exhaustion. Mirabel Namdi, the hospital room filled with joy. Jonathan kissed Adana's forehead and said, "I never thought I could feel whole again. But you've given me a family." Months turned into a year. Adana flourished as Nattech's new head of data analytics. Under her leadership, the company grew stronger, smarter, more transparent. Investors called her the secret weapon. She often spoke at conferences, sharing her journey not as a polished tale, but as raw truth. At one such event, a hall full of young Nigerians listened, rapt. Adana stood at the podium, her voice steady but full of emotion. "I once lived under Oshodi Bridge," she began. Gasps filled the room. "I wore torn gowns and begged for food. My dreams were buried under dust and grief. But one day, I saw someone else in pain, and I chose to act. That choice changed everything. Not because I am special, but because I refused to give up on myself." She paused, her eyes sweeping across the young faces. "No matter what you've gone through, no matter how hopeless it feels, a second chance is possible. You only need to believe and act when your moment comes." The hall erupted with applause. Young men and women stood, clapping, cheering. Some had tears in their eyes. From the front row, Jonathan watched with Mirabel on his lap. The baby clapped her tiny hands, smiling at her mother. Jonathan's heart swelled with pride. But healing was not only for Adana. One quiet evening, as she sat with Jonathan in the study, a knock came at the door. A man entered, an older relative, his head bowed. It was Uncle Obinna, the man who had cheated her after her parents' death. He fell to his knees. "Adana, I beg you. I was blinded by greed. I sold the house. I took everything. Now I have nothing left. Please, forgive me." The room was still. Jonathan's jaw tightened, ready to call security. But Adana raised her hand. She looked at the man who had once destroyed her world, and for a long moment she said nothing. Then she spoke softly. "You took my home, my parents' legacy. You left me to the streets, but if I keep hating you, I chain myself forever to the pain you caused. I forgive you. But forgiveness does not mean trust. Leave here tonight, and live with your conscience. That is all I have to say." Obinna bowed low, tears streaming, then left. Adana leaned against Jonathan, trembling. He kissed her hair. "You are stronger than anyone I know." 1 year later, on a quiet Sunday, Adana stood in the garden, watching Mirabel chase butterflies on the grass. Jonathan came up behind her, slipping his arms around her waist. "Do you ever think about it?" he asked. "The bridge, the boardroom, that marker?" Adana smiled softly. "Every day. Because it reminds me that no matter how far we fall, destiny can still find us. It is not bag." She turned, her face glowing in the evening sun. "I thought my story ended under that bridge. But God wrote another chapter." Jonathan kissed her gently. "And together, we'll write the rest." Mirabel giggled as a butterfly landed on her hand. She lifted it high, laughing. Adana watched her daughter, her heart swelling. From dust to diamonds, from tears to triumph, her journey was proof that no night was too dark for morning to find. And as the mansion lights flickered on, casting a golden glow over their family, Adana whispered the truth she now believed with all her heart. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.